This is 2 Minutes About Time with Luke Allen and Robert E.G. Black, the podcast that takes a look at the film About Time 2 minutes at a time. I am Richard Curtis, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you don't, well, you can just travel back in time 2 minutes and listen to something else.
I'm one of your hosts, Luke Allen. I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Robert E.G. Black.
Hello.
And with our special guest for this week, Callum.
Hello.
So today, we're looking at minutes 83 and 84 of About Time, which opens with the continuation of Kit Kat describing how she's the faller, which she says doesn't make the grade, who stumbles, who life trips up. Maybe I'm our faller. And Tim says, no. And then we cut to the bench. But, I mean, just this whole exchange, it's seeing Kit Kat so serious. It's almost heartbreaking, really.
Well,
because it takes a lot.
By labeling it, she is essentially suggesting, like, she doesn't have any hope of changing.
Yeah.
I do think this scene with Tim and Kit Kat is, especially the bit where they're walking along the beach, it's just some of Tim's dialogue is a bit odd for a brother-sister, like when he says, my darling.
Top equal with,
like,
equal with my wife.
Well, you know they're weird. She jumped on top of him in bed.
Yeah, I mean, but he, like, in the scene where he's talking to her on the beach, he almost sounds like her dad, like talking to her as a child. There's quite a sort of divide in their kind of personalities, but you can tell
1 minute sister, 1 minute daughter.
It is a bit of a weird relationship. And I think that
I like it in a lot of places. I admire.
I think
their closeness.
it's consistently weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I slightly think in places it goes too close, but for the most part, I admire their close relationship.
I think it's partly just due to Kit Kat being so, like, she needs to be needed and wanted so much that it just comes out in sort of unusual ways. And like that, like if it was like a friend or like a boyfriend, then it might not be as weird. But because it's her brother,
plus at this point he just became a father, so he might be slipping into that role really easily.
Yeah, that's true.
I find it weird the top equal with my wife line. Because I mean, obviously I don't know how someone, how exactly strong the feeling is towards a spouse, but I'd imagine it's really strong. The idea of comparing your sibling relationship, even if it is as much, because it's so different, it just seems an odd comparison to make.
They might be equal feelings, but they're different feelings, if you know what I mean. They're different.
But you don't want to call her your second favorite person or something like that. It sounds weird.
I think, it's just
I think that's a good phrase.
To be honest, I think at this point, Kit Kat's so desperate that, like, Tim's just trying to phrase whatever he's saying in the way that's most likely to, the most likely way to.
And remember in his narration at the beginning, which is from the future.
She was then and still is about the most wonderful thing in the world.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I can't remember that. That's good. I can't remember my own outro to the show, but I can remember that. So then Tim says he's going to tell Eric a secret. This is just... we'll get to this.
Now, yeah. I mean, I think this is quite a sort of significant moment in the film, not because of just what's happening within the story, but because it's the first time Tim actually shares his ability with someone else. Now, he's gone back in time in the past to change things about other people, like when he went back in time to meet Mary or went back in time to help his flatmates play go smoothly. Like, that's all affected them, but they've been unaware of it. And so, in this instance, Kit Kat's actually being made aware of the changes that are happening and what she needs to do to enforce those changes. Because, like I said in the last episode, Tim could have easily gone back in time by himself and just, like, distracted Kit Kat so she doesn't meet Jimmy. But instead he takes her there himself and makes her do it, because I think she needs that feeling of having accomplished something herself. Otherwise, I think she could easily have had this spiral down into...
Happen again later in
even if Jimmy wasn't involved, it could have still happened in a different scenario. And I think that's why he took her with him in this time travel journey.
I think I could get into this now, but it'll go into next week as well. I think that's the message this moment in the movie wants us to take, is she has to fix her problems. He can't. Because even when he comes back and has to, like, fix it all over again in a different way because of the baby switch and not help Kit Kat, they still sit there and they want to help Kit Kat get better because that's the point of the movie for her, is that she has to fix her own things. Yeah. And
I think it's a good message to take out of it, really, that you can be there for other people, but you can't sort their mess out.
Well, this is also, there's a way of looking at the movie where there is no time travel in the movie. It's just his way of telling this story of his life as he grew up and became a parent and, like, looked after his sister and dealt with his father's death. And in this moment, that fits that, is that I couldn't just go back and fix my sister's problems, but I could be with her in the present and help her do it.
And I think up until this point in the film needed this moment of sort of groundedness, if that's all.
Letting us know more as to what he can't do.
Yeah.
We're basically, this is the turn into the final act.
Yeah. And
we're 80 minutes and 120 minute movie.
Because I think
it's so much later into the film than I remember it being as well.
I mean,
well, it's preparing us. Luke, bad things are going to happen.
I mean, Luke, you mentioned that this scene or sequence is like one of your least favourite bits in the film. I know you still love it because it's your favourite film, but I think for me, it's almost what kind of makes the film, makes me love the film because I think if it had just been like 2 hours of just like quirky trips back in time to fix his mistakes he made as a awkward British middle class guy, it would have got just old very quickly. And I think we needed that moment of realism and kind of this moment where we were grounded in reality to realise that time travel doesn't fix everything, no matter if he went back in time by himself or whether he took Kit Kat with him. Like, or even if the thing with the baby changing didn't happen, like, his effect on Kit Kat not meeting Jimmy, like, that might not have made a difference. She may have still, like, spiraled out of control and into this kind of depression that she falls into. So I think it definitely helped the film not kind of spiral to sort of out the realms of possibility. I mean, I know obviously it's a time travel film, so you've got to suspend your disbelief a little bit, but I think it helped kind of make it a bit more grounded.
I think it matters that this is a romantic comedy about time travel. Both of those kinds of stories depend on this idea that you can change one moment and it changes everything that comes after. And ultimately the point of this movie is that you can't fix everything. Even with time travel, even with like the magic of romantic comedy. People have to fix themselves. You can help. You can be there for people. You can look after what matters in the day. But especially with this Kit Kat thing, I might get into this in the next few minutes, is I kind of dislike some of Tim's decisions with this moment. But it's why I like the movie. Is this segment, is because that review we read on, like, there's no struggle. The dude lets his sister almost die so he can not have his baby rewritten.
Yeah.
It's both a horrible struggle for him and kind of a dick move at the same time. And I love it.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the lowest point in the film. I suppose the dad's death arguably could be the saddest.
But this is like the preparation for that.
In terms of the character arcs, I think this is definitely the lowest point for both Tim and Kit Kat. But I think with Tim, it's a much more subtle realization until he gets to the point where it hits him in the face that he's not going to be able to change things without it having huge repercussions on the life of his kids.
Yeah, I'll discuss more when we get to the specific moment where my problem is with this. As I said, it's still a wonderful film. I want to make it very clear throughout that I love this film, and this sequence is still a great sequence. It's just, there are issues I have with it that have led to problems that I have with the film. So, Tim goes to tell her a secret, and she makes a promise to keep it. She says, we've always kept secrets. We have. You promise you won't ever tell. I might have got the number of evers wrong, but it doesn't matter. Kit Kat says yes, and he says, I can travel in time. We get her reaction before we cut to...
Which isn't much of a reaction. We just cut to the cupboard. We don't need a reaction. It's fun.
I think it's also her reaction, I think tells you a lot about her character, because like we mentioned before, she is quite childish.
Yeah, she's whimsical.
Yeah, definitely. And
this could be a game, she doesn't...
Yeah, exactly, that's what I was going to say. She treats it as, like, because she does have one moment where she's like, what the hell, this is, like, madness, like, but I think most of it is just, like, she's just in awe of it all, and I think that's that sense of sort of childhood wonder that's in her, whereas with other people, if Tim was like showing them that he can travel in time, they'd probably just be effing and blinding everywhere, just in disbelief.
Tim's response when James tells him, you know, it's the whole, this is weird joke, and then it's the whole, if it's true, which it isn't, which it is, but if it is, which it isn't, you know, that whole exchange, it's like he doesn't believe it, whereas she's instantly like, yeah, of course it's true.
she might not instantly believe it, but she's intrigued.
But she has enough trust in Tim.
Yeah. Whereas Tim, when James
tells... If it's a game,
she's not worried about making
true
a fool out of herself.
Yeah, when James tells Tim, like, Tim sort of rips him to shreds and acts like it's a complete joke, and his dad's just absolutely mad. But when Tim tells Kit Kat, it's just this sense of, like, intrigue and wonder, and she just wants to know more, regardless of whether it's a joke or not.
I just thought of an interesting way to take this moment, thinking of it, like, there being no time travel, is she knows Tim came to their home to look after her after she almost died, right? Mm-hmm. She knows why he's there. He's trying to help her fix her life. The I can travel in time could be the start of, like, an almost, like, therapeutic conversation. Is like, okay, close your eyes and picture the moment you got together with Jimmy. Like, did you already have a drinking, like, it's going back through her process of figuring out what could you change about your life. And so of course she's going to go along with it. She loves him. And
We've hardly talked about this reading, but I do really like this reading.
Yeah, but also, like...
Well, I think this is where it starts to matter.
All the things that he changes when he goes back in time, or she changes when she goes back in time with him. She doesn't have to go back in time to make those changes. She could just make them in the present. Mm-hmm. And
they might be better changes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I think your reading of the film works especially well in this scene, because it could be viewed as an almost sort of therapy session in which Tim is saying, okay, imagine you could go back in time and change that evening. What would you do differently? And she tells him, I would not hook up with Jimmy and, like, just enjoy the night, blah, blah, blah. And then Tim could say, like, well, what, you can make those changes now in the present. It's like, what's stopping you?
It's the present version of that change.
Yeah. Yeah,
and they can have that conversation in the dark, too, if they don't want to, like, make eye contact. It's awkward.
Yeah, exactly.
Go sit in the cupboard and talk about it.
I'd love to see a version of the film where the whole time travel aspect is just a sort of a coping mechanism. It'd be a lot more sort of morbid. But I mean,
it'd be like in Community with Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas.
Yeah,
you know, the idea that Callum, have you seen Community? Okay, well, there's a Christmas special, and there's this character who's always obsessed with making TV references, and he has a mental breakdown in which he pictures everyone as like stop motion plasticine animated Christmas movie characters, and the entire episode is like stop motion animated. But it serves the purpose of it being his coping mechanism to the situation they're in. Mm-hmm. So this could definitely work in a similar light. And I think it's an incredible reading that I hadn't even thought about.
I mean, I'd be interested to get Richard Curtis's, like, feelings on that interpretation, whether he's heard of that before or not.
Richard, email us, luke@lukeallen.kdk. And Kit Kat says, why are we standing in the cupboard under the stairs? Which means that Tim got her as far as to into the cupboard.
Yeah.
Before she asked how to travel in time.
Yeah, he didn't even mention when he initially told her that he can travel in time, that we have to go into a cupboard. Can you imagine? Like, everyone thinks Kit Kat's having a mental breakdown. But what must she think of Tim in this situation?
Right, I think what we need to do is find people who've never seen the film About Time, tell them we're time travelers, and see what would happen if we dragged them into a cupboard.
No, what you should do, edit a version of the film where he doesn't, there's no mention of the time travel. You just see Tim just occasionally walk into a cupboard and just stand there and then come out.
Well, my favourite shot in like my edited version of About Time is when he walks into a cupboard, closes the doors, then opens them again and leaves. It's just...
Yeah, no, I feel like there would be a way of editing the film that just makes Tim look like he's
looks so
completely
weird.
insane.
Yeah, like you cut out the conversations with his dad
Yeah.
and everything. I'll do this at some point because I was looking forward to doing the other edit of About Time, and now I've basically finished that for the most part.
cut out the conversation with his dad and cut out the conversation.
And every time
with
they
Kit
mention
Kat.
time
Yeah.
travel, and it's just
And
Or
also
cut
out the sound effect that is when they go back in time. So it's literally just complete silence. He's just standing in a cupboard.
So yeah, anyway, so Tim says, because we're going to go back in time and you're going to do some things differently. Kit Kat says, I love it when you're funny. And he says, grab my hand, close your eyes. And I mean, I think we should just slide straight into 84.
Anyway, so minute 8.
So Tim turns off the light.
84.
I'll take this
And we
one.
get the flashback.
Because there's a lot before the dialogue. Cause he clicks off the light, we get the hands, cause she grabs them. And then we get flashes, which get really confusing for me, cause I've been obsessing about the order they put these. Although we do get shots that are nice. We get Kit Kat and Jimmy walking. That isn't something we've seen, cause it's her stuff. And they seem to be having an argument, but they're dressed up to go somewhere nice. We get Kit Kat and Desmond with Posey. Tim and Mary on the wedding night, when they're making decisions about the wedding. Kit Kat with her vodka, which doesn't quite make sense, cause I got the impression that was like the day of the party, and so that should have already been erased. Her passed out on the couch after the wedding, which we saw before. And that brand of vodka, by the way, is on the thing behind her, which is a nice prop decision. We get Mary and Tim kissing, which is interesting because he's flashing back for Kit Kat, but we're getting his stuff as well. So
They both
it's kind of telling us stuff is going to get weird.
I mean,
it's telling us that they're both remembering different things.
Yeah, I was going to mention that, like, all these flashes are from, like, some of them are from Kit Kat's memories and some of them are from Tim's memories. And I guess, in a sense, it's kind of a bit confusing to show all the stuff with Tim and Mary because, like, that's not what this scene is about. But the repercussions of this scene end up affecting all that. So I guess this is almost a way of foreshadowing what's going to happen.
So one of the shots we get in the flashback of Kit Kat on the bathroom floor.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that the only purple she's got is her wristband is just, it makes it so raw and real.
Well, also you can barely tell in that shot she's holding a bottle.
Yeah.
She's in the bathroom drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the fact that she's just got a towel around her as well.
Yeah.
It's just, I think if you showed me this picture, and just sent it to me, I'd assume it was her in another film. Like, I wouldn't have realized that was a moment from this film.
Yeah, we get Mary and Rupert in here.
I suppose there's quite a contrast in a way because Tim's memories have kind of progressed from like him kind of failing at life, like struggling in love to being in a happy marriage. Whereas Kit Kat's has done the opposite. She thought she'd found the perfect boyfriend, but then her life spiraled out of control. He was abusive, and because of that, she's now ended up in this depression. So to have these memories sort of interwoven and flashing back and forth, it creates quite a sort of stark set of imagery, really, which leads into this scene quite well because it's such a sort of pivotal moment in the film.
Yeah. It's also interesting we get all three versions of Tim's meetings with Mary in this flash. We get them on Joanna's balcony, we get her with Rupert, which is the museum, and then we see her outside Dance Lenoir. So
these are things that haven't happened that he's remembering.
Well, for Tim, he still remembers them. I think.
Oh yeah, because we're going back through Tim's life, so Tim's life involves
time traveling.
Which would also be why when Posey is switched, it's problematic for him. He doesn't just remember the new one; he still remembers the old one. Which is even worse if he goes back and fixes it again, because now he remembers both. No matter what happens after that point, he is lost.
I've got more comments on that when we get to that specific bit. So after the flashback, me being
no. You forgot that me. Because the order is wrong. He gets to the Amelie poster, which is the morning of the shot where Kit Kat comes into his room, which is literally the morning after the party he's trying to get to. I'm like, yeah, perfect. Then we get him leaving the house, which is like 6 months after that. And then we get Kit Kat running away from Desmond, which is sometime in the summer before that. And so he missed twice by a bit.
It's harder to time travel with another person. That's what this means.
Well, because they've both got to concentrate on the same moment.
Maybe,
and also,
she doesn't know
what she's doing.
Yeah.
She doesn't know what she's doing, so maybe she can influence it. She's just like, let's go see this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he'd opened the cupboard door at like a second earlier, they would have been in a completely different moment in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To go into the dialogue now, right?
Almost. He turns on the light.
Turns on the light, yeah.
He turns on the light, she opens her eyes, and for a moment it looks like she noticed his outfit changed, but it is barely changed.
Yeah.
Instead of a jumper, he's got a coat. Like, he could have done that while her eyes was closed.
And I mean, that's another contrast between Tim and Kit Kat. Like, Tim's outfits are always so sort of formal.
Similar, yeah.
And, like, plain. They're sort of unnoticeable. Whereas Kit Kat, she's got this flower crown and all these bright colours.
Yeah, she's dressed up for this New Year's party. She knows her outfit. Now you can get to the dialogue. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my arson god in a box. Nice set decoration. The things in the cupboard have moved, which is nice.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that was a good move there. Yeah, I do like Kit Kat's outfit at the party. I didn't give much attention to it at the actual party scene, but it's such a... Like, they're both making very different impressions. Like, Tim's trying to ensure... Like, I think even at this point, he's after love. Like, he's there making sure he looks good in case he meets anyone there. Whereas Kit Kat's just like, I'll be me.
Yeah, flamboyant.
Also, just before we step out the cupboard, as it were, I just want to make the point of the fact that, basically, Tim's sort of time machine in this film is like the complete opposite of the sort of stereotypical... I mean, I'm sure most people think of the TARDIS when they think of time travel, and it's this, like, huge, bigger on the inside, like, alien machine, and you couldn't get any further from that, like, getting in a cupboard, which is almost smaller on the inside to try and travel in this film.
Yeah, but in the same way, both the TARDIS and this do the same thing in normalizing time travel.
Yeah.
Like back in the 60s, you know, it looks silly going inside a police box. Now it doesn't, because police box means Doctor Who more than it means police box.
Yeah.
But what this does here, in making time travel so odd and making it so awkward, makes it so normal and realistic.
Mm-hmm. It makes...
That I think if he had a weird time machine, it would just not work.
I'm not saying it should have had a, like, TARDIS equivalent. I just think it's quite funny how, like, the TARDIS is bigger on the inside, and Tim's sort of time machine equivalent is almost like the closest you can get to something that's smaller on the inside, a cupboard.
Yeah.
Although it's still also bigger because it has all of the past in there.
Oh wow. Very good way to say it. Anyway, moving on.
So as Kit Kat walks out, she says, "You're kidding. I can go anywhere in time and you bring me back to the worst party of all time."
Look at my note, by the way, Luke.
Yeah, oh, thank goodness. Yeah. Old people, finally.
No, I went back to the earlier footage from the party. There's old people all over the place. We just didn't notice them.
Or maybe in the original version of the party.
No, I went back to those minutes and looked. I'm like, there's old people. We just didn't care.
In the original version of the party, James had just forgotten to invite old people. So then he went back in time and invited a load of old people. And so then whenever you see the party from now on, there's just way more people and more.
It gets even more fun when we see where James is at the party.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he was in a previous scene, we just couldn't see him.
Yeah, I think it's... Oh, we see him briefly dancing with the young people, don't we?
Yes.
But, yeah, I mean, I think this does prove what we were saying before then, that the old people were just in a separate room.
Mm-hmm.
Or older people.
I mean, I think that does happen at, like, family parties.
It was just... And it's Tim's memory we're seeing. I just found it odd how many young people that Tim didn't know who they were there. But assume that there are more older people. These are just the kids of the older people. It makes more sense now.
That's the biggest mystery of the film.
Yeah, it's who made the invites for this party. Why did they choose these people?
So Tim says, "Fred, so let's go. We've got work to do." Kit Kat says, "What work?" "Making sure you don't meet Jimmy Kincaid." How do you pronounce it?
Kincaid.
Why did I make it sound Italian? I don't know. Kincaid. It just didn't look right when I read it. Okay. We'll ignore that. Maybe cut it out, or maybe it's funny. I don't know. And then Tim says, "Quick, in here." And she says, "But he's about to fall in love with me." "Not this time he isn't." I think it still shows her innocence with all of this.
Yeah.
That she still believes.
I think her sort of feelings of how she views sort of events in her life is that it's all sort of destiny and fate, and that, like, it was always meant to happen, and so why should she change it? Like, and that's, I think, what makes her struggle.
Also, I think it's interesting, she just called this the worst party. But I think really in this moment, when she's realized this is the part where she meets Jimmy, when she met Jimmy, that was a great moment for her.
Oh, yeah.
However, it went later. So it's like you go backward and suddenly everything's fine again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's strange, definitely. But I like it, and I think the main problem I have with this comes in Friday's episode. Or maybe next week, I haven't really checked. We'll find out. But I'll try and talk a little bit about it in Friday's episode. So, I mean, anything more on the visuals or any sort of concluding thoughts?
Well, yeah, because there's a little more at the end of the minute, because we'll find out her name next minute, but we see the waving girl from way back at the first time at the party, who, like, Tim awkwardly waved to. She sees Jimmy and kind of just leaves the guy she was talking to before. And we see Jay is there, he's talking to somebody. This is after, I went back to the earlier party and figured out when this happens. This is after Tim walked away from Polly the first time. And so it'd be right before, in editing that time, it is right before Kit Kat and Jimmy met, so it fits. And then my last note we can save for the next episode.
Okay, so Callum, any concluding thoughts on today's minutes?
I don't think so. I think I've said everything that was on my mind in terms of that minute.
Bro. So where can listeners find you on social media?
They can find me on Instagram at Cal Read Productions if you want to keep up to date with my latest work. I may not be the most reliable person in terms of how frequently I post, but if you want to see what I'm up to in terms of filmmaking and photography and all that, then you can follow me on there. On Twitter, if you want to see me ramble about Doctor Who and just films in general, that's Callum Read _. And also, another thing that I didn't mention in the previous episode was my letterbox, because that's become an obsession of mine recently. So if you want to follow me on Letterboxd and see my opinions on films, then I think it's just Cal Read.
Robert, where can listeners find you?
Website lemmingdrops.com or social media Robert E.G. Black.
Listeners can find me on Twitter at llama_bottle0, Instagram the Ginger Luke, Facebook Luke Allen Film, all podcast, radio appearances, newspaper articles, short films, all available at lukeallen.co.uk. This podcast on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at 2 Minutes About Time. You can join our Facebook group, The Cupboard, where you can talk all about time, the show, tangents, whatever, all that stuff. We'll be off. Mind how you go. The 2 Minutes About Time theme is performed by Ethan O'Mahony and is a cover of the About Time theme, originally composed by Nick Laird-Close. 2 Minutes About Time is a production of Lemming Drop Studios in association with Bottle O Productions.